Okay, and now turning to the hottest event in American politics. Not really. The Gavin Newsom Rumble and Fox News, hosted by Sean Hannity, versus Ron DeSantis debate. The two differing ideologies and the governors facing off. And it was certainly something, and we've pulled what we think are some of the best moments from that. We should note, too, the way that we pulled these is, I think, very different than how a lot of others are digesting in terms of what actually matters electorally. What is really going to hit home according to the priorities of Americans? First and foremost was a pretty strong opening from Governor Gavin Newsom, where he played off the initial attacks from Governor Ron DeSantis. But more importantly, he actually hit DeSantis for his underperformance so far in the GOP primary while parrying some of his attacks. Then let's take a listen to that.
There are profound differences tonight, and I look forward to engage them. But there's one thing in closing that we have in common is neither of us will be the nominee for our party in 2024.
The reason that we pulled that one, Krystal, I think, is that A, it shows the political adeptness that was displayed throughout the entire debate by Newsom. Anytime, I think DeSantis landed several legitimate critiques against Newsom. Newsom, though, is a politician, and this is the magic of television. He, in a greasy fashion, moves himself all the way around it, turns it actually into an attack and a parry, and then gets underneath DeSantis's skin, who has that artificial smile on his face for the entire time. And I actually thought it was a very effective way for Newsom to constantly needle DeSantis throughout the entire thing, because if this were just a debate on its face between, if neither of them were presidential aspirants or any of that, I think it would have been totally different. But DeSantis has to both manage his presidential campaign of trying to differ himself from Trump and all of that, and Newsom then can use the polling position to constantly undercut DeSantis by borrowing, and we're going to show you this in a little bit, borrowing talking points from the Trump campaign to hit DeSantis, which was very effective to parry him from a lot of these. Overall, that's what I thought his best political strength throughout the entire night was.
Newsom is a slippery MF.
He's good, man.
And this was not easy, right? Because you're going up against DeSantis and you're going up against Sean Hannity and Fox News. I mean, every single question was, and the stats they put up were designed to be like, California bad, Florida good.
These are the facts, Governor.
Yeah, these are the facts. Exactly. And so, and it was, I mean, literally every single question, right? So he is very good at just being like a classic politician. Anything they would hit him with, like they hit him with crime stats that you look at and you're like, I don't know how he's going to handle this one. But he was ready for it. He was like, all right, let's focus in on these cities. Let's focus in on the murder rate and how you have a worse murder rate than we do. Let's talk about Parkland and use that very emotional event to land blows as well. I mean, partly the topic choice was very predictable. You know, we're going to talk about homelessness. We're going to talk about crime. We're going to talk about like cost of living and taxes. So he was able to be extremely prepared. He's a talented guy. One thing that hit for me in watching it is the fact that a lot of the younger politicians like Beto and Cory Booker and Pete Buttigieg, they've modeled their speaking style after Obama in a way that I don't think really works for anyone but Obama. Newsom being a little bit older, he actually seems like he models the cadence of Bill Clinton.
Good point.
Which I think is more of a sort of like universally effective speaking style. In any case, you're not going to knock that guy off of his game. He's much more comfortable on camera. That much is really clear. But maybe this will be a surprise for people. I thought DeSantis did fine. I think conservatives probably liked what he had to say. I saw a lot of takes that were like, I don't know why DeSantis even agreed to this, but I do. This guy's down in the polls. He's got nothing to lose. He needs attention. He needs some kind of something around his campaign. And so in a weird way, if you're going to talk about winners and losers, I actually kind of thought they both won. Because DeSantis just needs attention and to prove he's up to the challenge and can own a lib when he needs to. And for Newsom, obviously, all he wants is to remain relevant through this period when Biden is the nominee and be able to keep himself in the conversation until next time around. And I'm sure he impressed a lot of people, too, in terms of his debating skills. So I actually thought this event kind of served them both pretty well.
I'm glad that you said that, because that was going to be my other test. I was like, why would he do this? This was such a disaster. No, I thought it was actually great for DeSantis. This is also a Rorschach test. If you are a liberal, you're going to come away thinking Governor Gavin Newsom won. And if you're a conservative, you're going to come away thinking that DeSantis won, because both played to the most emotive and important issues for their individual bases, unsurprisingly, to their strengths, and actually, I think, did a good job. That said, if we're looking at it from an electoral perspective, one of the ways that, again, Newsom was constantly able to get under DeSantis' skin was to use the Trump criticism against him, especially on COVID. And that's what we're about to show you here, where DeSantis consistently made COVID lockdown school policy, I think, to great effect to be able to hit Newsom. But Newsom, in his showing, again, his political skill, and hits back, and he was like, no, you were a lockdown governor. You wore a mask in September. So let's take a listen to some of that.
You passed an emergency declaration before the state of California did. You closed down your beaches, your bars, your restaurants.
False.
It's a fact. You had quarantines.
False.
You had quarantines. You had checkpoints all over the state of Florida. By the way, I didn't say that. Donald Trump laid you out on this, dead to right. You did that.
True.
You followed science. You followed Fauci, Ron DeSantis.
That's not false.
He followed science. He followed Fauci. You were
why
promoting.
Did everyone leave
hold
California
on. You were promoting vaccines.
We were open.
You were promoting vaccines. You even wore a mask in September.
We were open.
Sean,
you were closed.
If it's okay with you, we'll do this.
Why were you closed?
Why don't we do this
so
in a
long?
way where we both can have
Why were you closed for
opportunity?
so long?
You wore
You
a
were
mask
closed.
with
Guys,
Donald
guys,
Trump
I'm
outside
trying to let it breathe.
in September
Gavin,
2020. He did all of
Governor
that
Newsom.
until he decided to fall prey to the fringe of his party. And as a consequence of that, Ron, tens of thousands of people lost their lives.
Not true.
The equivalent, if I had your policies, the equivalent of 10 9/11s. Tens of thousands of people lost their lives. And for what, Ron?
See, clearly, he's like, no. You changed your mind later on. You, pursued some of the Fauci policy or whatever, March through September, because you were following along this same line. That's something that Trump himself has used against you. The best, possible parry on all of that. So from that perspective, again, with Newsom, I thought that his single best ability was to take uncomfortable moments and to either take control of the debate, laugh at Sean Hannity, immediately start questioning DeSantis himself, and just ignore the criticism.
He never
From that
looked
perspective,
ruffled.
he never looked ruffled. And this is where I want to come back to this. Newsom loves the game. He is a politician who is comfortable in his own shark skin. And that is something you either have that or you don't.
Yeah.
Buttigieg, the rest of them, they all look a little bit under the lights, not ready for prime time. And at a certain point, Newsom's been in the game for 20 years. And more importantly, he just loves it. And you can't take away that smile for somebody who loves to be in the middle of the arena. Also, the fact that he was against not only DeSantis, but on Hannity, and came with such a structural disadvantage and still came away relatively unscathed from a optics point of view, that's really good. But I have to come back to this. I thought it was good for DeSantis. Net. He got some good, some clips out of it. He's going to go viral amongst the right-wing people. I bet he'll get some more. I think he's going to get some more, donations and things out of this. Look, let's face it. The guy's not going to be the GOP nominee, barring unforeseen circumstances. So this was probably the best thing for him to do.
Yeah, listen, if you're just putting the ideology aside, and I'm not a Gavin Newsom fan whatsoever, so I think I'm able to watch it and just think about how it's probably landing and who's more politically skilled. Like, there's no question Gavin Newsom is more politically skilled than Ron DeSantis. It's really not even close. DeSantis had these couple of talking points about, like, people fleeing your state, and he looked more ruffled. Obviously, his face, like, let's not even talk about his face. Every time the camera's on him, it's awkward. He doesn't know what to do with it, right? It is a thing. And Newsom's out there looking supremely confident, taking over as moderator at times. In terms of doing the traditional politician thing, you're not going to find someone much better than Gavin Newsom. So, so in any case, I think it served both of their interests pretty well. But DeSantis had some decent moments, and Saagar, you flagged this one, which was harkens back to what has been the biggest critique of the Newsom administration and helped to launch that recall campaign against him, which he ended up defeating pretty easily, but did gain some traction there on the ground. Was that he had a different set of rules for himself and his conduct during the pandemic versus all of the, all of the underclass and all of the rules that were applied to them. DeSantis hit him pretty effectively on that. Let's take a listen.
They tax too much. They regulate too much. They have a political agenda. It's not a good climate for business. They've lost a lot of companies. A lot of companies have moved to Texas. We have had some to Florida, but they've lost a lot of companies to Texas because they're not doing a good job looking out for folks and not creating a good business environment. And, when I have people that come to Florida, they tell me, you guys actually want us to succeed in Florida. And they feel like when they're in California, they don't want business to succeed.
Is that what Disney's
and all that
saying,
stuff.
the Tampa Bay Rays?
Well, actually, yeah. I think that's an interesting point with Disney because I had Disney open during COVID and we made them a fortune and we saved a lot of jobs. You had Disney closed inexplicably for over a year. You were not following science. You were a lockdown governor. You did a lot of damage to your people. You had more kids locked out of school for a longer period of time in California than anywhere else in the country. It was the working class kids. It was the middle income kids. His kids were in private school. They were in class in person. He locked people out because of the teachers union. He is owned by the teachers union. You will never cross the teachers union.
This is just a lot of hot
lock, stock, and barrel.
Let's talk about
Saagar, what do you think of that moment?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's his best talking point. He's like, I did this one way, I did this the other way. I thought his second best talking point was about people who were leaving the state. This is, again, where I have to marvel, though, at Newsom. Newsom somehow jujitsu'd and was like, well, per capita, more people are leaving Florida. It's like, dude, that's not the conversation.
He had his talking point, which checks out, apparently, is that more people have left Florida to go to California than have left California to go to Florida.
I agree, but it's on a per capita basis, whereas DeSantis talking about the overall number. Again, in my opinion, that's bullshit. Because
but he muddied the waters enough.
Exactly.
And because the other thing is, probably a lot of Californians, they're not going to Florida, they're going to Texas, right? Or they're going to Arizona or Nevada or whatever.
Exactly.
And so he came prepared. He knew this was going to be a big talking point. All he needed to do was muddy the waters and be like, no, actually, we're getting more Florida residents. I don't know what you're talking about. And then the average person is like, I don't know.
Yeah,
Who
right.
knows?
The average person's like, what? What does PolitiFact say? Oh, wait, per capita? What is it? I'm not entirely sure what that means. What's for breakfast? Whereas I'm watching this and I'm just like, I can't believe that he somehow did that. But it is his best talking point. No question. I mean, this is why DeSantis ultimately turned the state red, is people were very satisfied with the way that he handled the pandemic and schools. That's the best single, mirror that he can hold up against Newsom. There's no question that the Newsom approach was a massive failure, especially, and this was another important moment that he would sprinkle through, was about the literacy rates, Florida versus California, in school versus not in school. Florida still, though, dipping below, unfortunately, just because school closure, even the small amount that did occur there, it was enough to cause ramifications. But it brings it back to that point. I thought, though, that DeSantis's weakest moment, and this is the one everyone keeps, so like his facial structure and all that. I agree. It's not good, but that's ever present. I thought his weakest electoral moment was on abortion. He was, DeSantis is very comfortable. School closure, COVID, culture war. I actually thought he won either or drew on every single one of those. He threw Newsom on his heels whenever it came to a lot of the culture war curriculum stuff, but he was rattled as hell whenever it came to abortion. You could really see Newsom hit his stride during that portion of the debate. Let's take a listen.
Hold on. Respectfully, this is an important conversation. Will you or will you not support
a national? Sean, why didn't you answer
or will
his
you
question?
Not support a national ban if it lands on your desk? You couldn't answer that in any other context.
Okay,
answer
gentlemen,
it tonight. It's a
we're
simple
moving
yes or no.
on to
By
the
way,
next issue.
No, Sean, not a next issue.
You never gave a week.
The American people should know this. I'll answer it for Ron DeSantis. Can't answer it. He will sign that extreme 6-week
let me move on.
So again, Newsom taking control, questioning DeSantis. DeSantis not confident at all in his 6-week ban, doesn't know what to do. Most of the Republicans, pro-lifers, have been trying to pivot this about late-term abortion. But the truth is that late-term abortion is just not, electorally salient. So for me, that was the most electoral problem for DeSantis in that entire debate. And it just shows you the albatross around their neck where they don't know how to handle this issue. And that showed me again Newsom's political skill, where, look, I would like for some of these culture war issues to be more salient, but the truth is, it's like they're not at all, as we have seen when you're put up against abortion. And he used the knife that he had very, very effectively in going after DeSantis on abortion. Yeah,
it's also just, you see his level of confidence up there. even being 2-1 against him, being on Fox News, he is taking control of the whole situation. And the other thing I would point out about that moment is I'm pretty sure that was the only even slightly adversarial question that Sean Hannity asked of Ron DeSantis, which was like, why did you switch from 15-week ban to 6-week ban? That was as harsh as it got for him. And even that little bit of adversarial questioning, he sort of crumbles under. And it's one of these things that it's like, you're going to get that question. Like, this is going to be, maybe he didn't expect to get it from Fox News. I don't know. But he should certainly expect that he's got to have an answer for this on the campaign trail, whether it's on Fox News or elsewhere. And you could just see that Newsom much steadier on his feet there. I mean, that is a clear place of strength for the Democratic Party at this point. But what was impressive to me about Newsom, who again, I'm not a fan of. I think he's slippery. I think he's done some horrible things with regard to labor. I think he's completely beholden to the donor class in California. Anytime labor priorities come up against Hollywood or Silicon Valley, he's back in Hollywood, he's back in Silicon Valley. So it's not like I like this guy, but you got to admire the game. He was able to take even the most difficult things about crime in California or about people leaving California or about the tax rate in California, whatever, in front of a conservative audience, and at the very least muddy the waters and do it very confidently and actually win on a number of these points in very, very difficult circumstances. So I think he handled himself well. I couldn't help but be impressed. And again, DeSantis, he didn't embarrass himself. I think he did fine. I think a lot of conservatives enjoyed what he had to say. His campaign right now, Saagar, we got to admit, it's like on the ropes. I mean, not only because he's still so far down from Trump and it continues to kind of like be a wider and wider gap, but Nikki Haley just got the Koch endorsement and all of the billions that come with that and all of the donor class sort of consolidation that comes with that. And so he's really in kind of a corner, desperate situation right now. He's got to do whatever he can to try to get some attention, try to have some moments, and try to rescue himself from permanent political irrelevancy, honestly.
Absolutely. No, it was the right call on his part. I think he'll come out better. This might be one of the high water marks for him, certainly, whenever we're looking back on all of that. But it was interesting. I would like to see more of it. I actually would.
I kind of enjoyed it, to be honest with you.
The one thing I wish, Krystal, was that DeSantis wasn't running for president. It would have changed the stakes, and it actually would have made it more policy focused, and I would have enjoyed that more. So, but at the same time, who's going to agree to be doing this if they're not presidential aspirants? So
Kyle made the comment, which I think is right. It kind of felt like a throwback, like back to like an Obama-Romney debate or, something like that, like before Trump just scrambled all the circuitry and like injected this whole other chaotic force into politics. It was like, you can imagine a parallel universe where these are the two nominees and you're having this sort of, it's partisan and it's silly at times and parts of it are disgusting, etc. But it's this sort of like quote unquote normal political debate. That is what it felt like. It felt like kind of a throwback.
I agree. Okay, guys, we will see you all later. I hope you enjoyed this Friday morning update, and we will see you on Monday.